Welcome to the El Cajon City Council meeting. We continue holding remote meetings while the governor's executive order continues to be in effect due to COVID-19. I'd like to remind our citizens they can submit questions for items on today's agenda. Public comments may also be submitted at this time, and they will be read at the appropriate time during this meeting. Comments will be accepted up to the conclusion of the vote. Comments can be submitted through the City of El Cajon's website, which is www.cityofelcajon.us. It's under agendas and minutes. If you go to the video streaming, you'll see a button to submit your comments. The meeting is called to order, and I'd like to ask our city clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you, sir. Mayor and council, if you can please state that you are present when I call on you. Mayor Wells.
I'm here.
Mayor Pro Tem Kendrick.
Here.
Council Member Goebel.
Here.
Council Member Mitchell.
Here.
And Council Member Ortiz.
I'm here.
Thank you.
All right. Would you please say the Pledge of Allegiance with me and then wait for a moment of silence? Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. The city clerk posted orders of adjournment of the February 9th, 2021 meeting and the agenda of the February 23rd, 2021 meeting in accordance with state law, council, and housing authority policy. We have no presentations on today's agenda, and that brings us to agenda changes. Staff, do you have any agenda changes?
Mr. Mayor, we have no recommended changes to the agenda.
Council members?
None.
Seeing none. That brings us to consent items. Consent items are routine matters enacted by one motion according to the recommendation listed below. With the concurrence of the City Council, a council member or person in attendance may request discussion of a consent item at this time. Council members, do you wish to pull any of the consent items?
No.
Staff? Angela, do we have any comments for consent?
We received no comments, sir.
Then I'll make a motion to approve the consent items.
Second.
Mayor Wells, your vote.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kendrick.
Yes.
Council Member Goebel.
Yes.
Council Member Mitchell.
Yes.
Council Member Ortiz.
Yes.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Thanks. That brings us to public comment. At this time, any person may address a matter within the jurisdiction of the City Council, Housing Authority, successor agency to the El Cajon Redevelopment Agency that is not on the agenda. Comments related to items on today's agenda are to be taken at the time that the item is heard. State law prohibits discussion or action on items not on the agenda. However, City Council and Housing Authority members may briefly respond to statements or questions, and an item may be placed on a future agenda. Angela, did we receive any comments for public comment?
Sir, we received one comment, and it's from Aimal Omer, resident of El Cajon. And it says, as we all know, and it's regarding, sorry about that. He sent two comments, so just bear with me.
It's fine. Take your time.
Sorry, it's regarding Kennedy Park. And he said, as we all know that this park is a public park and any resident who lives in El Cajon has the right to come to the park and do sport activities as they prefer to do. We also have a volleyball team that we would prefer to come and play volleyball, and we welcome anyone who would like to join us in this. But every time we put up our net to play, an officer, staff, or a soccer team will come and stop us from playing, or they will call the city police to kick us out from the field, which is unfair. This act of the staff members does not tell us that this is a public park. We did not know where to go or who do we need to talk to about this, unfortunately. I found your website and I saw that I can comment on this. We hope someone will read this comment and give us a small spot for a volleyball net, which does not take much space like the soccer field does. Please, please, please. We are also residents of the city and we love our city. We all hope that we also would be treated the same as the other residents of this city. I hope someone would listen to us and leave us a small spot in this huge and beautiful field. That's the end.
Graham, would you have somebody reach out to him and discuss this problem with him?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there another comment, Angela?
No more comments, sir.
All right. There are no written communications. We have no public hearings on today's agenda. And we have 3 administrative reports on today's agenda. The first report, item 6, is for a stage in Prescott Promenade. And I'll ask staff to tell us about the stage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Several months ago, the Downtown Business Partnership approached the city asking if we would be amenable to the placement of a permanent stage at Prescott Promenade. And as you know, this is Prescott Promenade. It's a common gathering place for not only community events, but when the community comes together to mourn issues. Many times, if there's an occurrence that's or something that's happened tragically in the Middle East, a lot of our Middle Eastern community gathers here to be together as a community. During the summer, we had multiple protests, and the Prescott Promenade was a location where many people gathered to express their opinions on a lot of different matters. But one of the, like I said earlier, this is kind of where the heart of a lot of our city events. This is sort of the heart of America on Main Street. It's the heart of Haunt Fest. And when the Downtown Business Partnership puts on a concert series on Friday nights, this is exactly where they put the stage. And you've probably seen the stage many times and didn't realize that there's a cumbersome process by which the stage is assembled every time there's an event there. And there's almost 25 events there a year. So someone is renting a stage, assembling a stage, taking the stage down. And so the business partnership thought it'd be a wonderful gesture to include a permanent stage that would look something like this. They have submitted building plans to the city, which we've reviewed and approved, and we're working out some final details. But we're at a point right now where we felt it's appropriate to have the city council weigh in to accept this donated item that would become a city asset, would not belong to the Downtown Business Partnership, but would belong to the city, and then we would program it like we do that space right now. I can answer any questions. I also wanted to turn some time over to Dale Priest and to Kathy Zeman from the Downtown Business Partnership to share a little bit more about this, and then council can ask staff and them questions if you so choose.
Thanks, Grant. First off, council members, do you have any questions? All right. Graham, you said we had a couple people that wanted to talk from the Downtown Business Partners.
Yes, Mr. Priest is on the line. There he is, and Kathy Zeman is on the line.
Daryl, are you there?
Daryl, I believe you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Hey, Daryl.
Oh, good. How's everything going?
Good to see you.
Good seeing everybody. Hopefully we get this pandemic over here soon and we can get back to a semi-normal life, hopefully. And so we've been looking at this stage area for a while, and we thought it'd be a good thing to do for the city. Again, it does take a lot of time. Kathy and her group work tirelessly. You know, they're volunteers, putting up the stage, taking back down the stage. So we thought it'd be a good community benefit for everyone. You know, we'll go ahead and build it correctly, you know, put the power in, you know, and do everything. And it won't be just for us, but it'll be a community asset that everyone can use.
That's a great idea. Kathy, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, we're just really excited about having a permanent stage there. Like Graham was saying, it takes time to take the stage apart and put it back together. And, we won't leave the trusses. Those will have to be put up every week because we don't want, of course, people climbing on that. But just having the stage there is going to make the concerts just go really smoothly. We have a brand new sound system that Downtown El Cajon Business Partners just bought. So the concert's going to be just super awesome this year.
Thanks, Kathy. That's a great idea. Angela, do we have any public comments on this?
No, sir, we do not.
Questions?
I think you must have answered all the questions because.
I've
Well-
got one.
Go ahead.
Under the stage, is that going to be secured so people can't get in there?
It's concrete, so they're going to need a jackhammer and a bobcat or
Okay,
something
great.
in there. So yeah, it's going to be solid. All the electrical, we're going to make sure that it's just not for our use, but really the benefit is people other than us can use it at any time. We're going to have locked up, the electric. So, again, other groups can use it. We have our own stages. So yeah. We want to do a first class job and something that's going to outlast us, hopefully, right? When we're gone, it'll still be there and being used by citizens of the city of El Cajon.
Okay, well, it sounds like a no-brainer to me, but
So I just learned something. It's a lot easier donating money to you than getting subdivisions. So I like that.
it's the way it should be.
So it's all good. So
Yeah, you come back and donate money anytime you want.
Okay, thank you.
I'll cut out all the red tape. All right. So this is open for a motion if somebody would like to make a motion.
Move adoption?
Mayor Wells, your vote, please.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kendrick,
Yes.
Councilmember Goebel,
Yes.
Councilmember Mitchell,
Yes.
Councilmember Ortiz.
Yes.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Yay.
Thank you very much.
Hey,
Thank
Gerald
you.
and Kathy, thanks so much. Great idea. And we're looking forward to. When do you think it will be finished?
We still got to work out the contracts and the insurance with the city, which Graham and Morgan and Vince have been really great to work with and real responsive. So we just wanted to make sure we got the approval. We'll do the final contracts and then we'll get it going as quick as we possibly can. Hopefully we're shooting, and I know this is a moving target for July 1st. Hopefully we'll have, we'll be back in the swing of things depending on the state, and what happens with the vaccine. So that's when we're hoping to have it done for our first opening act, hopefully, around the 1st of July.
Boy, it'd be great to see concerts and car shows and all that again. So.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Get back
Thanks, Gerald. Thanks, Kathy.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. The second administrative report, item 7, is regarding the application period for city commissions and committees. And I'd ask staff to tell us about this, please.
Certainly, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, a few meetings ago, staff brought forward the fact that we had several vacancies, one vacancy on the planning commission, one vacancy on the personnel commission, and 3 vacancies now on the public safety oversight committee. We have, since we put out the note or the word that there were vacancies, we received 1 application for the personnel commission. We still haven't received applications for the other 2 entities. The deadline for applications is March 3rd, so we're still a week away from that, but we had planned to do interviews on March 9th. Given the fact that we're approaching a deadline on the application deadlines, we would recommend that we move forward on March 9th with the Personnel Commission, but we extend the deadline for the other 2 entities, the Planning Commission and the Public Safety Oversight Board. Two options for the council to consider. One is we just extend it a month and work really hard in the next month to get the word out, or we continue to get the word out and just keep it open until we have 2 or 3 applications, and then we can bring those forward for city council consideration. So staff does not have a preference on either of those options, but we present it to you as a city council to consider those 2 options or any other options that you may come up with.
Thanks, Graham. Any questions for Graham? All right. Do we receive any speaker cards for this, Angela?
We did not, sir.
Okay. So I think either option makes sense, but I prefer just to keep things simple and leave it until we have a couple applications and staff feels like it's time for us to review it. Because the planning commission is doing fine with the 4 they have. I don't think it's time sensitive, is it, Graham?
It's not. We have a quorum in all 3 of the entities, so that's not an issue right now. But at some point, we should fill those positions, of course.
Oh, absolutely. And are we doing some advertising? Are we sending out some newsletters and other forms of advertising, maybe some Facebook ads?
So we put it out on Facebook and Instagram. We put it out through press releases. So we'll continue to do that, though.
All right. So if nobody has any objection, my motion would be to do the latter of the 2 suggestions that Graham made.
I'll second that.
Mayor Welch, your vote, please.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kendrick,
Yes.
Councilmember Goebel,
Yes.
Councilmember Metchel,
Yes.
and Councilmember Ortiz.
Yes.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Thank you. The last administrative report is item 8. It's a COVID-19 status report, and I will ask Graham to tell us more about this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. This is the report that we give every 2 weeks. Not a lot actually, there's been a lot that's changed in the last 2 weeks, so I'll go through some of that. We'll talk about some data, talk about some of the reopening changes that are occurring, and then some data on vaccines. So as you can see, we are plummeting in the number of active cases county-wide. We're back actually to early November pre-spike, that holiday spike that we experienced. So that's really good news. And in fact, I'll share this information now. We think that we're on a trajectory to get out of the purple tier and into the red, which would allow restaurants to open. So I think we're moving in the right direction. And the fact that vaccines are occurring at a pretty rapid rate, that's helped as well. This shows the exact same data I just showed you, but just the last 30 days, you can see that there continues to be, over the last 30 days, a pretty significant drop in the number of active cases, and the rate of deaths have also begun to plateau a little bit. This shows the data for just the city of El Cajon, the number of active cases. Our pattern looks very similar to that of the county. However, we have sort of plateaued a little bit in the last week or so, but we have had a significant drop since the beginning of February. This shows hospital beds and capacity in our hospitals. If you look at the last month, we've had about a 58% drop in COVID patients that are in hospitals. That's phenomenal. As you can see, we were at 1,500 at the very beginning or the end of last month, and as we approach the end of February, we're around 640. The same goes with ICU patients. We've had a 51% drop in ICU patients since January 25th. I know this only goes to February 8th, but if you were to go back to the 25th, which was sort of our spike, our highest day we had in COVID patients, we've had a 51% reduction in ICU COVID patients. Again, really good trends that are occurring. Last week, we shared some information and we went into a lot of detail about our community outbreaks. I thought I'd share it kind of as a bigger picture this week. But if you look at our community outbreaks on cases per 1,000, countywide, excluding El Cajon's numbers, there's less than 2 cases per 1,000. El Cajon has 6 cases per 1,000. This is an area, council, that we have zero control over. This is doesn't matter what policies we have in place. These are things that are happening without our ability to control. We know that we have a higher percentage of skilled nursing facilities in our community versus other communities. And this is what we believe has driven some of our high numbers in the past. Looking at other congregate care facilities, so this would be non-skilled nursing facilities, but senior facilities, Southwest Keys would be included in this type of a congregate care facility. you can see we are more than less than half of the county in terms of cases per 1,000. And then there's also the county records community outbreaks. So outbreaks that are occurring at businesses, at governmental entities, at churches, at schools. You would think that if a city was being sort of, I'd say, cavalier in its approach towards COVID-19, this is where you would see the spike. And as you can see, we are not seeing a spike in community cases, or at least an above average compared to the county. In fact, we're well below the county averages community outbreaks. So as I mentioned earlier, we are currently in the purple tier. That has not changed since the last time we did present. Like I said, I think we are probably a few weeks away from entering into the red tier, or the red zone, maybe as much as a week away. Once we hit the numbers that trigger the red, we have to stay in that for a couple weeks. But that means within a month, we think that we will be in the red zone, or the red tier, which will allow restaurants to open up at limited amounts, and as well as other venues. So I think we're, again, moving in the right direction. The one big thing that's happened since our last meeting is a judge opined that youth sports can occur as long as they are meeting college and professional guidelines. And so we should see a resurgence in youth sports countywide, and we're excited for that. I'll just give an anecdotal experience that I had. I know somebody whose daughter plays softball, and they were in a tournament out of state. And in this tournament, there were 188 teams participating. It's a lot of teams. 155 of those teams were from California. So California children have continued to play, but just at a much higher expense. And there's a lot of tax dollars flowing towards other states. So we're excited to capture those residents back in our communities over the weekend and allow their youth to play on the fields. We're already working with the sports leagues to make sure that this is happening. Prior to the announcement of the judge's opinion, we received a letter, as well as members of other members of the community, such as Dr. Wooten and members of our representatives from the county. And some of you signed this letter, but this is a letter requesting that there be an East County sports bubble. This letter is a bit moot at this point, given the judge's edict, but you can tell there's a strong movement in our community to allow our youth to get back out and to play, to recreate, and to have some normalcy in their lives. Moving to vaccines, our county's doing exceptionally well lately. In terms of first doses, almost 20% of the population has received at least the first dose, with almost 7% of the population being fully vaccinated. So that's moving forward. The county released some vaccine distribution by zip code, and this is a number of individuals per zip code per 1,000. So you can see countywide average is 164 individuals per 1,000. Our zip codes, which do include areas outside of our city, we are a little bit below average, but it could be in part based on the types of individuals that have been allowed to get these vaccines at this point, or ages. So it's something that we're not alarmed by yet, but we're tracking this closely and making sure that the county is doing its due diligence in our community to promote vaccines. So we currently are still in the tier, or phase 1A, tiers 1 through 3, which includes those in the medical profession and those 65 years and older. We've been told that starting on March 1st, those that have jobs that put them at risk of exposure, such as those in the teaching profession, childcare, emergency services such as police officers, and food and agricultural workers, should start being eligible on March 1st. And then the county is hoping that shortly thereafter, anybody with pre-existing conditions or conditions that or underlying health conditions will be able to get those. So hopefully by the middle of the month, it'll extend to them as well. So as you know, there are many places to receive the vaccine at your medical provider if they have vaccines. There's several super stations around the county. The closest one for us is at Grossmont Shopping Center in La Mesa, and of course at 367 North Magnolia, which is a Health and Human Services office for the county, is also administering the vaccine by appointments only there. With that, staff's able to answer any questions that the council may have, or if there's additional information that you would like us to share in the future, we can include that in our future briefings. So with that, council, we have concluded my report.
Thanks, Graham. Any questions by council? Okay, Angela, do you have speaker cards on this item?
No, sir, we do not.
Okay, well, that's an informational item only, so no motions required. And that takes us on to commissioner reports. Item 9 is my report, no changes. Item 10 is a legislative report, and I'll ask our Assistant City Manager, Vince DiMaggio, to share the legislative report with us, please.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. You have with you a memo that details some of the key legislation that's been proposed. The cutoff for legislative bills to be submitted was the 19th. So this is not an exhaustive list. It's a list that's been worked on with me and the League of California Cities. So we may add to it as we become aware of other bills that have been submitted before the deadline. I do want to draw your attention very quickly to 4 of them on page 2, which seems to be the 4 that are the most concerning to us right now as they may impact our services. The first one is AB 329, which requires bail to be set at 0 for all offenses except serious and violent felonies. And of course, the key words there are serious and violent felonies, because legislation comes in that suddenly designates a particular offense as serious or violent, or removes it from that category. So that could be a bit of a moving target. But again, this is kind of a COVID-related thing that's looking to go permanent, where they set 0 bail during the pandemic, the early days of the pandemic, and now they're bringing forth legislation to make this permanent. The next one I want to talk about would be AB 333. This proposes to remove burglary, looting, felony vandalism, and identity fraud from crimes that define a pattern of criminal activity, criminal gang activity. This is a bit concerning to League of California Cities, and so consequently we need to be concerned about it, because all of those crimes are typical indicators of criminal gang activity. So why they're proposing to remove those as defining a pattern of criminal gang activity, we're not really sure, but that's something that concerns us. The next one is a major piece of legislation. I'm not sure what kind of traction it's going to get yet, but AB 48 prohibits the use of all kinetic energy projectiles to disperse or control a demonstration. So when you think about this, if the demonstration becomes unruly and we're dealing with what could be more or less described as a riot, this basically prohibits less lethal kinetic projectiles from dispersing the crowd. So obviously we're not going to use lethal devices to disperse the crowd. And this takes away the ability to use less lethal devices, kinetic energy projectiles. Rubber bullets, for instance, would be part of this category. So this is very concerning, because essentially we have no way of controlling a crowd that becomes unruly. If it's really, there's no answer as to what they expect the police department to do if this situation were to occur. So we're going to pay close attention to that one. The next one is SB 358 from Senator Jones. This, of course, is kind of the Amazon delivery theft bill, where the bill makes it a crime and then sets forth additional criminal punishments for people who walk into the property or the porch, what's called the curtilage in legal parlance, to steal packages that have been delivered, Amazon, UPS, things like that. And then it sets forth some punishments for that. It would, if you repeat this activity, you repeat this crime in a certain 36-month period, it then becomes, more severe. The punishment becomes more severe. So we'll see where this goes right now. This is a waiting committee referral assignment, so we'll see if this has any traction as it goes forward. So those are the ones that we're watching right now. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Is this a good time for us to discuss sending letters about some of those?
Absolutely, Mr. If the council desires us to send a letter on any of these, we can do that.
Okay, I think we need to send a letter on the one about the pattern of gang activity, opposing that. And the second one about restrictions on projectiles, because otherwise we can have large groups of people come in and destroy our city and our police can't do anything about it.
That's the fear on that one, yes.
I'd also like to send a letter on the no bail. That's
I agree.
a dangerous thing.
Okay, we can certainly do that.
Unless council members, do you have any objections to that?
No, I support that.
I would support that and adding AB 333 to remove burglary, looting, and felony vandalism as pattern of criminal gang activity. I mean, all these are just going to spell disaster for our communities.
We probably should have a vote if Mr. Kendrick wants to make the motion and then second by somebody.
Can we put all three of those?
Yes.
Gary?
Okay, so moved.
I'll second.
Mayor, what's your vote, please?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kendrick,
Yes.
Councilmember Goebel,
Yes.
Councilmember Metchel,
Yes.
and Councilmember Ortiz.
Yes.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Great, thank you. And I apologize, but my technology has, okay, there we go. I'm back. All right, that brings us to activities reports for council members. Mayor Pro Tem Gary Kendrick.
As reported.
Council Member Michelle Metchel.
As reported.
Council Member Steve Goebel.
As reported with an extra comment, this Friday, February 26th at noon, at the MTS bus yard on Vernon Way, the MTS board will be having an event. They are retiring the last diesel bus and replacing it with an electric bus. And so that is good news for air quality here for people in El Cajon. And so I'll be speaking as a member of the MTS board, along with Chair Fletcher and a few others. And that's this Friday at noon at the MTS bus yard on Vernon Way.
Great, thanks, Steve. And Councilmember Phil Ortiz.
No changes as reported.
There are no joint council member reports, no general information items, and no first readings of ordinances on today's agenda. Item 15 is the second reading and adoption of an ordinance prohibiting demonstrations that target residences. I will ask our city clerk to read the title, but first, Angela, are there any speaker cards for this item?
Sir, we received 19 comments for this item.
Wow.
The first one, a lot of them are anonymous, and the first one says, I am in support of not allowing people to protest at the private residence of people. I feel that people have the right to feel safe in the privacy of their own home. Next, from Melissa, she writes, restricting freedom of speech and the fundamental right to protest is against everything we have understood as Americans, and it is clearly an overreach of government. It is obvious to your community that this code is simply a tool to give the police the authority to arrest peaceful protesters at their own discretion. I implore the council to not approve this unconstitutional and un-American item. Next comment from Madeline Morales. This proposal is an affront of civil liberties. It attempts to illegitimately privatize public spaces in an effort to limit individual access to one of our most essential constitutional rights, to protest. Therefore, I strongly encourage councilors not to vote it down. The next comment simply says, item 15 is unconstitutional and needs to be removed. Next comment from Kylie, criminalizing the right to protest on private residence should not be prohibited. U.S. citizens have the right to protest in our First Amendment right. We should not protect property over human lives. To protect property over the voices of protesters is fascism and should not have that here in Santee nor anywhere. From Dante, limiting demonstrations is anti-democratic by any measure. It is imperative that the people's voices can be heard when their other options have failed them. This code is additionally dangerous with its vague wording, which will allow law enforcement to enforce at their discretion, endangering the communities this code supposedly aims to protect. Next comment is anonymous. I strongly disagree with the proposed ordinance. The change would reduce civic engagement. The policy would likely be interpreted to criminalize protests in other areas, further straining police and community member relationships. Other policies already exist to prevent harassment and public nuisance that don't infringe on people's right to peacefully assemble. Next, from Tariq Afour, it's our right to protest peacefully against police brutality in local government in El Cajon. That violates everyone's and groups' First Amendment rights stated in the Bill of Rights and the Constitution that constantly give deaf ears and trying to brush racism under the carpet as like neighboring La Mesa's own local government and police departments is the right of free individuals and groups to have their voices heard. We are the people. From Savannah Fortney, it is unlawful for the city to prohibit peaceful protesters. Anonymous, I oppose this new ordinance due to the fact of its vague wording, seeming to leave it up to the police officer's discretion, which leads to unfair and disproportionate policing on the Black, Indigenous, people of color within our community. As a participant of protests over the summer, I firmly believe that marching through residential neighborhoods is the most effective way to directly reach the people of this community who are often ignored and forgotten. We witnessed so many families and children come to their doors or windows and rejoice when they heard our voices in the street. Some of those children and adults, I'm sure, had never seen that many of their neighbors in one place showing support and fighting to see change in this community for those kids' future. Growing up here as a white kid, I could tell you how impactful seeing a demonstration like that would have been on me as a child. Please rethink this new rule, keeping in mind the danger our mayor already put his constituents in when he welcomed hundreds of people in our city without masks just a few weeks ago and the Let Us Worship event downtown, directly putting the unhoused community members at risk as well as any other community members who visited the park afterwards. From Kiko Means, this is a comment against agenda item 15. This policy infringes upon the constitutional right to protest guaranteed by the First Amendment. I urge the council to not adopt this measure. From Danielle, East County BIPOC does not support this ordinance. The wording is intentionally vague and allows police to use their discretion when enforcing it. This often conflicts with the interest and safety of Black, Indigenous, people of color who have been fighting for their rights in the streets of San Diego this entire year and well before 2020. The Constitution granted citizens freedom of speech and assembly, and the city of El Cajon does not have the authority to impede on these rights by creating limitations on where the citizens have the right to assemble. Protests are meant to make people uncomfortable and disrupt the flow of things, because fighting for our rights is more important than society being comfortable. From Leland Samuel Griffith, prohibiting demonstrations is akin to fascism. It suggests a state that is unwilling to hear the cries of the people. Institutions that prohibit the people from demonstrating are directly prohibiting the free will of the people and deserve to be dismantled. From Kelly Ports, limiting demonstrations is anti-democratic by any measure. It is imperative that people's voices can be heard when their other options have failed them. This code is additionally dangerous with its vague wording, which will allow law enforcement to enforce at their own discretion, endangering the communities this code supposedly aims to protect. From Anonymous, I am in support of prohibiting demonstrations at people's private homes. People have the right to feel safe in their own home. From Anonymous, this seems like a dangerous encroachment on the rights of citizens to an open government. Do not forget that you are government employees and as a result have specific information available as public knowledge. If this makes you uncomfortable, that's natural. If you automatically think this means hordes of your constituents will break down your door for answers, ask yourselves why you feel that way. The sidewalk and street outside of your home should be no less public than that outside of mine. From Jennifer Vargas, hello, I am against this ordinance. The wording of this ordinance is too vague. This leaves a lot of enforcement to police officers' personal discretion, which would endanger BIPOC, those who historically have not been treated fairly by police enforcement, including the El Cajon police. Just have a couple more. One from Anonymous. This is an affront to the citizens' First Amendment right. In the past year, all demonstrations in the city of El Cajon have yielded no damage to the city. All injuries, if any, have been provoked and enacted by non-law enforcement. Out of town, anti-demonstrator groups up to including El Cajon board member Jill Bartow. This does not protect law enforcement, the city's citizens, or the outlook of the city. This vague language only moves forward to more unconstitutional legislation by the El Cajon City Council and will only further to invoke more demonstrations, division, and discourse in the city. And the last comment, Anonymous, prohibiting peaceful demonstrations is a direct violation of the First Amendment of the United States of America, which guarantees the right to peaceful assembly and demonstrations, as well as freedom of speech. Please be advised that if passed, the taxpayers will be stuck fighting this all the way to the Supreme Court, guaranteed. A better way to spend the council's time and my taxpayers' money would be to defund the police and direct more funds to mental health care, schools, getting the homeless off the streets and into homes and rehab, and into after-school programs and food banks, etc. Invest in the community, not into more incarceration. No justice, no peace, period. And that's the end of the comments, sir.
Okay, thank you. Council members, anybody want to make a comment?
I got a couple of questions for the city attorney. We're not the first city to look at this kind of thing, are we?
No, Councilmember Goble and members of the council. In fact, we're not the first in the county, not only in the county, but in the United States, as mentioned in the ordinance. This is based upon a prior ordinance back in the 80s in Wisconsin. It went to the Supreme Court under the name of Frisbee versus Schultz, and the Supreme Court held that an ordinance that is limited to prohibiting protests to a particular residence is constitutional. And there are various means and alternative means and locations for people to protest. So I think in many of the critiques that have come from the comments just read, there's a misunderstanding that if they have a protest that goes into neighborhoods, that's illegal. That's not the case. It has to be a protest that targets a particular home. And the Supreme Court has indicated clearly that that type of a protest can be limited when you're balancing the interests of the constitutional right of privacy for somebody who lives at that residence.
Yeah, I'd like to emphasize that one of the comments said this will prohibit us from marching through residential neighborhoods as we did this past summer, and this does not prohibit that. You may march through a residential neighborhood, you just cannot target a residence. I just want to emphasize that. So this seems to have been court tested already.
That's true, it has, yes.
Thank you.
I also think that maybe there's been some misunderstanding on this. So if I'm correct, we are not limiting any type of protest. You can protest all you want. You just can't go to someone's home and concentrate that protest at that home. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. It's a term they use is targeting. It's the term that we've defined in the ordinance. So if they're trying to protest in front of a particular individual's home, it doesn't have to be an elected official or an appointed official. It could be anybody. In fact, this case out of Wisconsin dealt with protests of a doctor who performed abortions. And so the ordinance was adopted not to protect doctors who perform abortions, but anybody who has their residence and their life disrupted by a specific targeted protest in their neighborhood, in front of their home.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions? Morgan, thanks for being prepared for that and answering all those questions.
My pleasure.
So, Angela, would you like to read the title of the ordinance then?
Yes, sir. An ordinance adding Chapter 9.41 to Title 9 of the El Cajon Municipal Code to prohibit demonstrations that target residences.
All right, I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Mayor Wells, your vote, please.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kendrick,
Yes.
Councilmember Goebel,
Yes.
Councilmember Metchel,
Yes.
Councilmember Ortiz.
Yes.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Thank you. There are no closed sessions on today's agenda. I want to remind everybody we'll be back this evening at 7 o'clock. So if you haven't got enough city council fun, you can come back and do it again in a few hours. This brings us to adjournment. The adjourned regular joint meeting of the El Cajon City Council and El Cajon Housing Authority, held this 23rd day of February 2021, is adjourned until tonight, Tuesday, February 23rd, 2021 at 7 o'clock p.m. Thanks very much to the staff and for everybody that joined us today.